Afternoon, guys. Let's give it a minute here. I think there's a couple more people trying to come in the waiting room. Oh, I guess those are all the people's note takers and bots. There's about eight people's note takers here, and none of the actual people here.
So Ray, who's the person on the wall there behind you?
Oh, in that picture, that's one of my favorite movie characters ever. The Crow from 1994. That's Eric Drayton, played by Bruce Lee's son, Brandon Lee.
I've gotcha.
Yeah, good question. One of my hobbies, something I do with my youngest daughter, kind of in our spare time. I kind of do a little bit of like picking antiques, sports memorabilia, yada yada yada. We go to flea markets, tag sales, stuff like that. And anyway, we were at a flea market one time, and she knows that's one of my favorite movies. And we walked by that thing, and I was like, "Damn!" And then I looked at the price. The guy was selling it for like $30. I was like, "That's coming home with me." Cool. I don't know. I don't know why there's only two of you guys here, but we'll dive into stuff regardless. Oh, well, if more people come, so be it. Otherwise, we get more of a personalized session today. But again, you guys have both been on, I think, a few of these before, and, I gear most of what I cover toward sales resources and reselling data. And I think both you guys have this, so I'll just drop it again really quickly. I'm not going to go through the whole thing since I just see Georgetta and Matt on here as of now. The link I am dropping right there in the Zoom chat in case you guys don't have it. And just to recap super quick, that is the resource I drop pretty much every week right at the beginning of these sessions. And it's just going over our seller resources here. So again, I go through this on pretty much every workshop. The link is right there in the chat for anybody that doesn't have it or lost it or what have you. So yeah, I just wanted to drop that first and foremost. And then I want to dive into covering a few things before we get into a bit of a Q&A. Also, I just want to give you guys a heads up. I know there's only a couple of you on here. I have to end today's about 10 or 15 minutes early. I just have a big MVP and team call scheduled for 4 p.m. Eastern tonight, and I just got to do a few prep things. Normally, I don't put stuff back to back, and I usually go, right up until 4 p.m. Eastern or a little over on these. But I got to end it about 10 minutes early today, so I just wanted to give you guys a heads up on that. And a few things I'd love to go over. So, for instance, something I get asked for examples a lot of, and people like to see are, our Audience Lab clients, no matter what program there is. I get asked about this from a lot of people. It doesn't really matter if they're incubator, DaaS Lite, DaaS Standard. It doesn't really matter. This guy specifically, and I'm just showing you a landing page because a lot of people ask, hey, how do I go build out a landing page and what do you recommend, right? And I see a lot of different things from our different DaaS clients. This guy specifically just enrolled on March 31st. So he's been in the program, 8 or 9 days-ish. He just had his first one-on-one call with me earlier today, and he showed me this page. Now, this guy's name is Alex. He has a background, and his main area of expertise is in SEO. He's been kind of a big hitter. I went and looked at some of his background. He's been in the space since 2006. He's worked with some big brands. He spoke on some big stages. So he has a pretty good track record and acumen behind him in terms of, knowing digital marketing and knowing, the people in the network. Once he really bought in to pivoting, he kind of realized what he was telling me today, and I hear this from quite a few SEO agencies specifically, but a lot of different lead generation agencies. I'll say SEO specifically because that's where this conversation was more geared around. But he had told me that he has been being a big shift in the market, and although SEO is still relevant, it's not the needle mover that it was a decade ago per se. And we all know the longer and the more you've been in this marketing game, that's definitely not an overnight play, right? It's more of your long-term, you should have something. I always say when I'm going in to do generation strategies, I want to have something at minimum twofold, something that's going to get me immediate results in appointments and something that's also going to build me a long-term presence and that's going to grow over time. So I think the most common thing a full stack agency would offer in that scenario is, hey, we'll get your Facebook ads up and running, right? And start to generate new leads and appointments instantly. And we'll also do SEO and, get you ranked higher in Google and build that long-term play, right? So that's a very common one. Some of the pivots that Alex had brought up and one of the reasons why he made a decision in Q4 of last year to pivot away from SEO. He took Q1 of this year to kind of revamp his clients, kind of offboard some of the ones he didn't want to work with and outsource them to other agencies or other providers or colleagues in the network. He just really didn't want to be a full stack primary SEO service agency for a couple of reasons: saturation, time and fulfillment, time before you see results, and what the clients are looking for in today's marketplace. And although he wasn't just an SEO agency that was primary, he also ran ads and did a couple of other things. He was just losing. The more he grew and scaled, the harder the harder it was for him to make good profit margins, really. So his time in the business was adding up to way more than he wanted in terms of fulfillment, and his profitability was actually decreasing the more clients he was signing with the way his systems were in his business. Again, I didn't dive into much more of it than that. I just asked him for some background and context, but he's like, hey, Ray, so doing my research in Q1 and kind of reframing how I want to position myself for my relaunch. He's like, I kept a few handful of clients that I've had a great relationship, and I've already been pre-pitching, this Audience Lab stuff. So as soon as I get onto the platform, they're ready to get started and start rolling with this, which is great. But, within the first, I said 8 or 9 days he's been in the program, just 10 days ago, this would have been a total SEO page. But as he decided to revamp, he kind of went all in on making a data agency for a number of reasons: profitability, lower fulfillment, depending on the clients he's working with, et cetera, et cetera. So you can see right off the bat, intent data is the missing key. And it's kind of ironic that this guy's whole expertise and real whole following and customer base was built off SEO. But what's he saying in his new landing page? Don't stop wasting time, SEO, right? Now, he still does it to an extent, but he's just showing people, he's like, that, although still effective, that's not the thing that's going to get people over the hump in today's day and age, especially if you're looking for like immediate results. So, he goes on to say on this page, quit wasting money on XXS, this and that. Skip the guesswork, trial and error, frustration of bouncing between multiple lead gen agencies, and instead grow your business with real-time data-driven leads, not hopes and prayers, right? So get intent leads that would take you to the education and the booking page. Grow 10x faster with buyer leads, not using these crappy ones that we all know are shared or generic leads. Start getting buyer leads. If I were him, I probably would have used the word exclusive a little more in this, because if we know anything about these platforms on my screen, these are all shared leads, right? You could buy them, and the next guy could go buy them. And with shared leads, the big thing from a client standpoint, buying leads off one of these type of platforms, is they know after a little while of doing this, they either have to be the first one there or the cheapest bid to actually get that job, because they're going up against 5 other roofers or plumbers or whoever, whatever industry we're talking about. So if we can get someone exclusive leads, and that's why when I'm in a conversation with a prospect, I would say, hey, Matt, if I could drive an exclusive lead booked into your sales team of a guy that's pre-qualified and fits all of your prerequisites, right? Looking to buy today, fits your average, order value, your income parameters, your geographical parameters. So he fits all of your criteria. He books in and shows up for your demo call. What percentage of your guys close if it's an exclusive lead just booked into your company? That is so much different the way they look at that than just buying a shared lead, because they know it's kind of a crapshoot. There's not a real high closing percentage associated with your Angie's List, your Home Advisor type of leads. It's more of a quantity over quality type of game, right? If you just put enough out there, something's going to stick, right? I personally hate those strategies when it comes to marketing. Just throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. I really hate those strategies. So the more we can streamline that and let a buyer know, and that's why, again, that language, I think he should mix in here a little more. I'll probably give him that feedback, but I always want to position what we're doing when we are doing it properly as exclusivity, because there's a big lead. So, a big difference. So I actually didn't read the fine print there. Are you fed up, or the smaller print? We're juggling multiple shared leads. So he goes on to say shared leads, but he still didn't mention exclusive. And you should kind of position one against the other, right? He did, but he didn't do it as clear and concise as you could. When it comes to messaging, usually less is more. If I can get the same sentiment across in 2 sentences as I can in 4, you're better off going with 2 sentences. And we all know people's attention spans, right? You start to get into something that's a little longer, or they're not all in, or they're a little confused by it. You just lose their attention span, and odds are they're not going to keep scrolling down to your next call to action or whatever, your next powerful thing. But I thought this was a pretty good example just to show you guys how quick people just get up and get landing pages running And this is one, I thought this was a pretty good example. I see
Good.
these from quite a few different clients. But yeah, I thought this was a pretty good example, especially for him getting this up and running, in approximately 8 days. I thought he did a nice job. So I just figured I would share that with you guys because I do get asked from time to time, hey, not what our landing page look like, more what our resellers landing page look like, right? Because ours is a little different. Most of you guys are going directly after brands, advertisers, mom and pop businesses. We're going after more agencies and Fortune, 500 companies for our advertising. So it's probably going to be a little different than most of you guys. That's why it's good to see what you guys are doing. And he's going a lot after the brokerage industry, as you can kind of tell by qualified buyers. That's why they're using that phrase, getting buyer leads, which is also a big difference in that particular niche or industry. I don't think I would use the term buyer leads if I was talking to roofers. I would definitely use the word exclusive leads or pre-qualified or whatever. So yeah, that was the first thing I wanted to go over. Now, last week's session turned into almost like a whole Q&A, and I didn't go through much of the lesson I had. And this really applies to a couple of the other things. So I just want to go over a couple of our acronyms, verbiage, nomenclature, terminology, whatever verbiage you want to use for it here, just so everybody understands. Because if you guys have access to like the DaaS checklist, you'll see the EAACO framework referenced. Not everybody really knows what it means, and it kind of goes back to our initial company, our PDocs brand, and the terminology. So really quickly, whenever you see that term EAACO, I just want to go over it. It stands for engage, assess, assign, call to action, and obligation. In short, we try to engage the croc brain. That would be with your headline, your opener, your lead type, right? What gets their attention and keeps them on your page or keeps them scrolling. Most surveys nowadays say you have somewhere between 3 and 8 seconds to capture the market's attention. Again, you can find different studies, but the bulk of my see somewhere within that time frame. So you got to do that relatively quickly. Then when you get into a conversation with somebody and start, whether that's through email, whether that's through DMs, whether that's on a Zoom call, you're going to start to assess where they're at in their business and assess what they're stuck with or assess the real problem. Then we assign the frame. So once we assess the real problem, I break that down. And I always like to say, guys, when we assess the real problem, most of our clients and most of our customers we talk to will talk to us about symptom or surface level problems. And we want to get to the real or the root problem. So a lot of times they'll say, my ads aren't converting. My profitability isn't great on campaigns. My cost per lead is too high, right? That's a symptom or a surface level problem. We got to get to the real problem. And usually we can do that by no matter which one of those problems I just said, by asking a couple more questions. Cool. So how long has that been a problem? What have you already tried to do to fix that problem? Okay, what did you like about that solution and what didn't you like about it? So just by those 2 or 3 questions into somebody's problem, we can then, then dig out the real problem from the symptom or surface level problem. And then I like to do what's called assigning the frame. So that's taking somebody and kind of repositioning them. And I can do that really in any niche, any industry, any offer, any problem. But a very basic one is, hey, Ray, our ads aren't converting great and our profitability and our engagement on them just hasn't been where it was a couple of years ago. And, everybody keeps telling us that's probably because of our creative. So we go back and we revamp creative every week or two and keep spitting out new creative. And that's been our solution. But we found that the budget we're spending on this creative agency isn't offsetting our profits, right? So that could be what they think is the real problem. It's my ads aren't converting and I just need to keep spending money and doing more creative. And I might really quickly say, hey, man, did you ever think like maybe your creative isn't off? Maybe you're targeting and finding the right audience. Now, you might be just going in blanketly and ticking the box, letting Facebook find your ideal audience, which means a certain percent of your budget each month is going into a testing phase and Facebook's trying to figure it out. Now, for us internally, some of our best creative, we've been running for 12 to 18 months straight. And the only thing we might swap out is the intro, the hook, or the angle, or the lead type, and keep those fresh. But our best content, you know why it keeps performing for 12 to 18 months? Because we keep swapping it out with new targeted audience. So what if I could do this for you, Joe? What if I could get you in market, intent-driven, first-party data to loop into these campaigns so we can actually target your real ideal customer and stop wasting your money on the testing phase? Do you think that's a better solution than paying an expensive agency and swapping out creative every 2 weeks? Right? So now I've just assigned a new frame. And basically when you do this, I don't know how many of you guys have heard me talk about this before, but when you do this, the prospect's brain is kind of doing this psychologically. Hey, what Ray said just made sense. Nobody's really mentioned that or told me that before. How do I find out more? And then we take them into the call to action. That could be sending them to your VSL, right? It could be booking a triage call, whatever the next step in your sales process is from when you're having this conversation. And then obligation is really just holding them accountable. I like to call that touch point messages. If my call to action is to book, and let's just say today is Tuesday afternoon and they book for Thursday, rather than just booking and sitting on my, sitting on my tail and waiting till Thursday at the time and hoping the guy shows up. In the meantime, I'm going to send touch point messagings. And when I did the call to action, if you guys see my sales process, I would have sent some kind of resource or video. So again, I book him today, the call's Thursday. Tomorrow, maybe 24 hours before, let's say he's booked Thursday at 3. Tomorrow, Wednesday at 3, I'll shoot him a message. Hey, Joe, hope you're looking forward to our call tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Hey, did you get a chance to go through that resource I sent you over yet? It's a small touch point message. And then again, about an hour before, hey, Joe, looking forward to our appointment here in an hour. Just in case you didn't see it in the email, here's the link again. My schedule seems to be on time. I look forward to seeing you on the call. Boom, just a couple of what I call touch point messages. And you guys would be surprised by just doing those things rather than just sending the booking link and sitting back and waiting 2 days, just sending a couple extra text messages or DMs or, messages out of your CRM, SMSs, whatever, that increases show up rate by about 26%. I've tracked it in multiple offers, and just the difference of doing a couple touch point messages. So sometimes it's just simple little steps that a lot of people either take for granted, overlook, say, oh, everything's automated and you're going to get reminders via email. Well, if you really think to yourself, out of all the emails you get, how many do you open and read thoroughly? And if you can answer that honestly, the same thing with your prospects, most likely. So if you're relying on automated email solely to get people to show up, I mean, just be realistic. I know I check a fraction of my emails, and the ones I actually open and give attention to is even a smaller fraction. So I just know realistically, the market's also going to be like that. We all know people are opening and reading and digesting every single email. So if I can have extra SMS messaging, which I know whether I reply or not, I get and read damn near every text that it's my phone, unless it shows up as some kind of spam, type of message or what have you. So again, a couple things to just keep in mind. So number one, engage your talk brain. Again, we could talk about that in so many areas, and engagement would be like its whole session. But again, the engagement would be however you're running your marketing. I might be creating engagement through my cold email, which at most important that is your subject line. Is it getting opens? And then the first line, is it having them read through and actually get to the body of your email? So those are the real things I'm kind of tracking, is my open rates. And then like how many people are converting if they do open it. So it could be cold email that's getting engagement. Could be ads, right? And the engagement, again, we want to create that with the lead type or early on in our messaging. Could be engagement via YouTube videos. Could be via social media posts, right? We can create engagement through multiple different channels or platforms. They all have their different, intricacies and subtleties and nuances that would pertain to each platform or each channel of outreach. But we're always doing the same process. First, we got to get engagement. Then we got to assign where they're at and what the problem is. Then we got to, assess. Then we got to assign a solution to that. Then we got to see if they're interested in, getting more information or booking a call, right? So first engage, then we assess where they're at to find the real problem. Again, usually we will dump people into one of two buckets, right? Are they person A or B? Means, are they more of like in market now and ready to make a buying decision? Or are they more of a nurturer and somebody I got to keep in my pipeline and educate a little more, right? So those are the person A and B, generally speaking, in most sales process, that you can just kind of separate people into two different buckets. And then I kind of have different calls to action. Like if I see somebody's more of a nurturer, they're going to go into my long form email sequence, and they'll probably go into one of my free communities, a school group, a Facebook group, where I have a community that they can get more training, interact with more of my users or my clients, things like that, right? Somebody that's more in market now or in the buying pocket, I'm going to want to go right to a call, which I probably don't want to do with somebody I don't think is in market to buy right now. The assign is the biggest part of this whole thing, right? Once we've acknowledged the problem, assign a new frame, showing them the real problem and making the problem aware. This is crucial, but yes, also easy to mess up. That's why I have further trainings on that. So also, one thing I always do is I always ask permission. So like if they say, hey, the problem is, poor profitability, too high of cost per acquisition, whatever, crappy engagement, whatever they say it is, one of the first things I'll say is, hey, do you mind if I weigh in on that? Oh, no, not at all, right? So I like to just start my conversations if somebody's talking to me, and this is more probably in a social media format where I see a post where somebody's talking about crappy ad performance, and somebody, raises their hand in the comments, yeah, I'm struggling with that too. I might just tag their name, like their comment, say, hey, Joe, do you mind if I weigh in on this? No, not at all, right? And then I'd say, hey, well, you said the problem is low cost per, higher cost per acquisition, and I don't really know much about what you're doing based off your one sentence. But what I've found is people just really don't know how to use in-market intent-driven first-party data to target the real ideal clients. Generally speaking, the businesses I work with, if we can get you a targeted dialed-in audience, it drops your cost per lead by anywhere from 25 to 40%. Does that make sense? Right? And that would be kind of my whole prospect. Asking permission, giving them the real problem, giving them the knowledge gap. And then again, I might take it one more step further and build a little angst. But first, I ask if it makes sense and that they understood the gap I provided or the solution I've injected there. And then of course we would go for a call to action. Mine is usually something like this. So if they say it makes sense, right, whatever we just said there, that's where they're giving me a frame of acceptance. We usually get one of three frames when we say that to somebody. We say, hey, this is a problem. This is what I think you should do for a solution. Does that make sense? If they come back saying, yeah, Ray, 100%, that's a strong acceptance to the frame I just laid out. A medium acceptance would be like, Ray, that kind of makes sense, but I'm not sure it would work for my niche, my industry, my offer, whatever. And a low frame of acceptance would be, Ray, I don't see how that would work at all for me. Or Ray, I've heard this from 10 other people before. This isn't new, right? And then you know that your knowledge gap that you injected sucks, and you can go back and tweak that if you're getting a lot of low frame of acceptance. When I do this process, especially organically in the DMs, Facebook, LinkedIn, I usually get about an 80% or higher strong acceptance to the frame. And if that's the case, I would go right to this call to action. If they said, yeah, Ray, it totally makes sense, 100%. All right, that's great, Joe. Hey, this is what I recommend next, and totally up to you. Number one, I'm going to drop a little video showing you exactly how we've helped dozens of business owners drop their cost per lead and acquisition by using our data platform. In addition, I'm going to drop my 15-minute booking link. Please select a date and time that's best for yourself, and I'll run you through exactly how this would work for your niche, your industry, and your business specifically. Does that sound cool? Boom. Send over the information. So now we're educating them, we're giving them the next steps, and we're going to get on a one-on-one call and build more expectations and a timeline or a game plan specific to them. So, hey, this video is going to show you how we do this generally for a bunch of clients. I want to show you how we would implement this for your offer specifically. So just take 15 minutes. We'll talk about it. At the end of it, if it makes sense, we'll talk about that more. If not, we'll part ways as friends, and I'll be happy to give you some free resources, right? And then, of course, the obligation, a couple of touch point messages, and sending homework in that process is certainly important. I already mentioned that kind of in the call to action, however you want to put it, whether I put it into the obligation or the call to action, doesn't really matter. I usually mix the homework into the call to action, and I bring it up again on the obligation, as I said earlier. Hey, Joe, did you get a chance to go through that 5-minute video I sent you yesterday? Just wanted to make sure you understand that before we have our call tomorrow, right? Very non-invasive, simple message to keep engaging with the client. And again, not just hoping and praying that he booked 48 hours out. I sit back and just wait, and my automated emails, and by faith, they're just going to show up to the call. Because I'll tell you, not a lot of people are having huge success with show rates if they're just relying on those particular mechanisms. Matt, you had a question before I go on? Go ahead.
Yeah, I got a quick one. Where in your process are you qualifying them financially? Like, you're probably going to price, you have like a band, I'm sure, right? How you price your stuff, but like, where are you kind of sniffing that?
Yeah, we do it really early. So
Like,
one, we usually do it, especially in our ads, we're calling people out. Hey, if you're an agency or a large brand and advertiser, like who this is for, number one. Number
yeah,
two, in our pre-qualifying form, our ad tech is really only designed for businesses spending a minimum of 5K per month on ad spend. If that's not you, you should click out of this ad now. So we do it a couple different ways.
okay. Makes
Those
sense.
are the more automated ways before I actually speak to somebody. And then when I speak to somebody, of course, we can do it a little more thoroughly. Cool. Good question. Good question. Oh, I wasn't actually going to go over this, but since I just flipped to it really, really quickly, I think this is a good exercise that a lot of people might not think of when it comes to sales. But my RBO framework stands for reflex, brush off, or objection. So this is kind of what goes on in my head when I get to my pitch and I actually drop the price. Is their reaction a reflex? I say 5 grand, and they're holy shit, right? And that's a reflex. A brush off is like send me a proposal, send me an email, whatever. That's a brush off. And then there's an actual objection, which is what I'm trying to get to. Either, and those usually boil down to one of two things: financial, logistical, right? Logistical could be time, could be got to speak to a partner, could be a few different things. I always want my objections to come down to finances, and then I want to make it make sense for them financially. But that's a great exercise. Anybody, whether you're, an amateur or entry level at sales, or whether you've been doing it forever, that should go through your head whenever you're getting to the pitch and you get that objection. Try to think of yourself before you give your reaction. Was that a reflex? And I just take a breath, talk about it, calm him down. Was it a brush off? Hey, F you, like, hey, Ray, send me a proposal. Okay. Well, I could send you the proposal, but what difference is that going to be than the numbers I just ran through if I send it to your email? What's that going to do for you? Right? And then he's going to say, well, nothing. I just got to show it to this guy. If you got to show it to this guy, why don't we just get him on the call and we all discuss it? Because what if he has questions that you can't answer and I can? Right? So I can play around with that and really hold them down. Usually those send me a proposals are just that, right? It's just like in real life. Yeah, give me your business card, I'll call you. To me, that's kind of an F off. The percentage of time I'm going to hear from that person is going to be much less than 50%, or much less than I want it to be. Right? So again, if it's a reflex or a brush off, handle it, overcome, take a breather, and actually make sure you're overcoming real objections and not reflex reactions or not brush off reactions. Those aren't made to overcome. Those are just made to acknowledge, associate, and then just clarify, right? And then you get into overcoming objections. The other thing I did want to cover and go through on here that I think is relevant, I think will be really helpful, is because all of you guys are putting together your offer a little different. Now you all have access to Audience Lab and the features and deliverables, but a lot of you guys are taking it to different markets. Some want to do the marketing and fulfillment and outreach and reactivation along with the data. Some of you guys want nothing to do with the agency fulfillment. You just want to sell data and have people go run for you. Some of you guys are bolting onto a content agency. I see Audience Lab people bolting this data onto their creative agency, onto their ad agency. So there's a lot of different moving parts on how this stuff can vary, which is hard for me to just show you, hey, this is how I would go craft that offer. I try to do that with you guys on a little bit of one-on-one scenario, especially when we go through the MVP call, or at least we start to dive into that. But a little exercise you can always keep in mind, and how I'm always crafting offers, is what I call the TMS avatar. So really, people usually are buying because there's three kind of categories we want to lump them into when we're looking at this. It would be time, money, and sophistication. That's what the TMS stands for. So let's look at number one, and hopefully this isn't, let me try to blow this up real quick. Zoom puts too many damn toolbars in my way here. Either way, I'll just read through it. I don't want to screw up the whole presentation slideshow just because I'm trying to figure something out. Hold on. Somebody else in the waiting room. Okay. So anyway, I was just saying, so there's usually a few different formulas, I would say, for an offer. So the first one on my screen says money plus sophistication lacks time. They would want more of a done for you service. This is more of our agency style and more people in this particular program and that we work with in Audience Lab, right? So the client might have a budget. They're already smart enough to do marketing. They have the sophistication. They just don't have the time, or, hey, that's not where my time is best spent. I'm better out bidding jobs. I'm better out at work, whatever it is, right? So we need to think about this and think about these three things with your market. A majority of the time, if we're running an agency, it's going to be this number one and more of a done for you offer. Now, if they have money and time, but they lack the sophistication, or another word for sophistication here is just knowledge and skill set, right? You can kind of interchange those. But when it comes to, marketing, lead generation, exclusive leads, running paid ads, some people like, hey, I have the money, I have the time, I just don't know how to do it. That would be more about, hey, let me take your hand and walk you through it and show you how. Maybe you want to create more of a done with you offer. And then, generally speaking, people with time and acumen or knowledge, or at least the willingness to put in the time to learn that skill set, but they're really lacking money, that's more of your do-it-yourself and your low-ticket offers, right? So again, generally speaking, and you could go back and think of any offer you've clicked on in the last 5 years online, and I guarantee you a vast majority, 80% or more, will fit into this. If you were looking at a done for you offer, it was probably an offer where the the market they were going after had money and sophistication or knowledge, just didn't have the time. If you see a lot of done with you offers, it's probably this formula, and so on and so forth. So that's pretty repeatable. So again, money plus sophistication without time, done for you. For instance, 12-week program to have the whole system built out for you. or done with you. We teach you how to build out the whole system, or do it yourself, right? Build out the first part of the system yourself and see results. And usually a do it yourself will tie right into your program. So they can build out the first step by themselves. And then a lot of times they need to get with you to build out the rest of it, or to show them how to build out the rest of it, or whatever that may be. So again, that's always a good formula or framework for building offers and putting them together, at least a good thought exercise, right? So in this example, like a weight loss offer, let's say we were trying to kind of grade where people fall. So a 10 would be a harder sell unless your program is quite unique and advanced. And a 4, however, may be the perfect fit, as it's likely for someone to understand. And this is really understanding this 1 through 10 scale in this particular slide is more geared toward the sophistication level. And I'm always kind of looking at that. So for instance, a 0 in the weight loss industry, a 0 sophistication level has no idea how to lose weight, right? They just don't have the slightest clue. A 5 or somebody mid sophistication level trying to find the right program, right? They might have tried intermediate fasting. They might have tried one of those, fad diets, a keto or this or that, right? And they probably are going on that yo-yo trajectory of fitness that we see a lot, right? Trying to find the right fit. They go through phases where they lose weight, but they put it back on. Or 10 could be very sophisticated, but still hasn't got the solution. So they've used every weight loss program under the sun, but they still haven't been able to, get their ideal weight, fitness, whatever. So these are good kind of little exercises that you can think about when you're trying to gauge the sophistication level. So with data, a 0 would really be like, have no idea of how to implement data into Facebook ads, might even have no idea about Facebook ads, but I would definitely say have no idea of how to use it in with ads. A mid-level sophistication would be like, I've heard about it, I've been on calls, and I've tried certain data platforms, but I've never really put all my eggs in that basket. I've scraped lists and tried them in cold email, but I've never implemented it into my ad spend or my ad campaigns. And a 10 in this case would be like, I tried Zoom Info, I paid for one of their plans, and I didn't get results, right? And then I could probably show them our platform as opposed to theirs, apples to apples, why it didn't work and what might be better about our platform. So again, just going through that sophistication level, that's kind of what I think about. And some of the questions you can ask to figure these out just generically, again, you can get more specific with each problem. But what I'm saying is these are questions to ask yourself about your market generically, right? So what is the big problem in your niche? Who exactly suffers from it? What is the solution that we provide? What's the sophistication level of the problem or the audience? You could really swap out that word there. I might look at it twofold because the sophistication level of the problem may be different from the audience, but I kind of want to know both. Are you certain you can provide results with our platform? I would say pretty sure, and the speed guarantee, right? So, hey, we can show results within the next, we can have data embedded in your campaigns in the next 3 to 7 days. We should see overall profitability increase by 25% in the next 21 days, right? So we could send some type of speed guarantee and results that we offer. And the last thing I want to cover in this deck, I want to say it's slide 325 area. I didn't write it down before. No, I didn't write it down, but I know this almost as good as the back of my hand. I talked about it a little early on, and I want you guys to see what I was talking about when I talked about lead types. So here they are. I'll actually kick it back a little bit earlier. So going back to sophistication level, and if you guys aren't familiar with this, if somebody's not familiar with this, this is still to this day, in my opinion, the best advertising and marketing book, especially when it comes to writing copy and leads, called Breakthrough Advertising by Eugene Schwartz. Very expensive hard copy book. I'll be honest, when I first got online 4 or 5 years ago, I couldn't afford the hard copy. It was one of the first things I paid for, like a PDF, downloadable version. And I still go back to it. Great thing. But one thing he talks about in that book is it's really good to start off our marketing or our messaging with something the customer already knows, right? So are they aware of the problem or solution? Do they need education? Is a story perhaps the best way? Once we know the sophistication level, we kind of know what type of content or lead type that we can use, right? So example, most people know they need to lose weight. What they did not know is they can do it faster by, again, inject your solution, intermittent fasting or whatever your thing is, right? So Sometimes that's what we want to be showing people with our messaging, and there's lots of ways to do that. So it's really good to ask your question to ask yourself is, what does the customer already know? For instance, with data, what do they already know? They already know the big competitors are using that. So I might start with, hey, you want to compete with the category king in your industry? And again, once I know my industry, I would probably go isolate those and actually put the brand name. If I'm in retail, it might be Target or Walmart, right? Or whatever, but I'm going to look for category kings and say, hey, what Walmart is using to acquire a customer that you're not using, which is why they can acquire them for 1/3 of the cost. It's not because of their budget, it's because of the data. So now I just started with what they already know. Walmart's using data and killing me in terms of how much money they can spend. What they did not know is the real competitive edge is the data, not necessarily the budget, right? So that might be a way my lead type can connect with something they know and then kind of bridge a gap and go, oh shit, I didn't really know that data was kind of the difference maker for that particular customer. So what I want to talk about with lead types is there's 6 main lead types that almost every brand uses. And guys, when I first learned this back in late 2020, late 2019, early 2020, it was, yeah, late 2019, early 2020, I believe. When I first learned this, it really clicked in my mind, and every offer I had been hit with, every post, every ad, every landing page, it kind of clicked to me like, now I just see which lead type that they're using on almost every offer, every piece of content. But and these are kind of listed backwards in terms of the sophistication level of your audience. So here's a little bit of a definition. I'll go back to this if I have time in a minute. It's easier to understand off of this graph. So what I'm going to show you really quick is the top line is showing your prospect sophistication level, right? So on the right side, where I'm now hovering my mouse, in case it's small for any of you guys, if you're watching on your phone, this says unaware. On the left side, it says most aware. So in between, these are the different awareness states that your prospect will go through throughout their buyer journey. And really, when you guys go back to that resource I give you at the beginning of each of these that I threw into the chat, and you look through our micro commitment sales process, it's taking them from unaware to most aware. So by the time they get to the end of your sales process, they're actually in that buying pocket and ready to buy. But if somebody is totally unaware, let's start with an unaware lead. That means unaware that you exist, your brand exists, probably the solution or the product that you offer. They're unaware of everything, right? I might want to start with a story-based lead. That's very good to an unaware market because you got to build up at least one of the 3, if not all 3, of the know, like, trust factor that you're going to get from somebody to ultimately buy. Now, they might not one of those 3 or 2 of those 3, but if they don't like you, they don't trust you, and they don't know you, they're definitely not buying. We all know it's best to have all 3 of those, but you're not going to get a sale with at least obtaining 1, if not more, of those components. So a lot of times it's story-based lead, and I have a great formula that I use for these still to this day that works really well. A problem-aware audience means like, hey, I'm aware that I'm stuck in my business, but they're not quite solution aware yet. So that means they haven't been actively searching for solutions. They haven't been already showing up to sales calls. They're aware of a problem, but they're not aware of solutions yet. So with those people, I might want to use something like a proclamation lead, which is just a bold statement that disarms the reader, right? How to lose weight without giving out your firstborn child or whatever. It's just something that's going to kind of disarm them and be alarming. Secret lead. Secret lead is right in between, and there's a couple of these that fall in between. So a secret lead is very good for either a problem or solution aware audience. So once you can really pinpoint, and I try to say identify the sophistication level of your audience, once you can kind of pinpoint that, you can pinpoint which type of lead types will work. Secret lead is very basic, and we guys have all heard these, right? 3 secrets on how to lose weight this week. 3 secrets on lead generation. Why do you think Russell Brunson blew up with .com secrets, with expert secrets, with everything, traffic secrets, right? Everything turned into secrets. So with a lower sophistication level audience, you can give them 3 secrets that deliver value, that deliver more knowledge, that kind of go, oh shit, I didn't know that, right? That could be a good post. My favorite type, and this is actually, I was just working with my appointment setting, one of the programs I run internally that some of you guys might not know of. I run a program called DM Setter Academy, where I train DM setters that are primarily operating in Facebook Messenger, but on all different platforms. And I was going through problem to solution leads with a couple of my team members that are creating a lot of content and posting right now. And I think these are my favorite, especially if I know my awareness or sophistication level of my audience is somewhere between solution or product aware. Now, the big difference between solution and product aware is like solution aware is like, I know I have a problem that I'm stuck, that my ad costs are too high, that my leads aren't exclusive, right? Whatever that is. But they're aware of some of the solutions. What I mean by not product aware is they don't know that there's a done for you solution, a done with you. They don't know that there's a coach, an agency, a consultant. Like they're not aware of all the different products. They're aware of maybe a basic solution. So it comes when it comes to a problem solution type of content, the easiest way to describe this is just start out with the mainstream problem. Hey, paying too much for Facebook ads. Hey, is your cost per lead rising month in and month out? Whatever. Start with a mainstream problem. Then start with the mainstream solution. You've probably been told go hire a Facebook ad agency. You've probably been told whatever the mainstream solution is. Then your next line or your next, subject, your next step talks a little about why that mainstream solution is bullshit, right? Why it's expensive, why there's a lot of overpromising and under-delivering, why mainstream solutions usually are bullshit. It's usually we need to find that secondary one. So mainstream problem, mainstream solution, why mainstream solution kind of sucks, and then unexpected solution. And it kind of dives into our solution. So that's a great format to lead into and really write content posts, lead types. A promised lead is usually a very direct promise that leads, directly correlates right into your offer. So what if I promise you I could show you how to drop your cost per lead by 20%? That would be a promise lead. And whatever the rest of my post is, when they ask a question, that ties right into my offer of getting into my audience lab platform, right? So, and again, promise leads are good for people that are already actively searching for products, actively, what we would call bottom of funnel, right? Almost ready to buy now. And then most aware is basically somebody that's been following you for months. And if you went and told your story, they would tune out in 2 seconds because they've already heard it. They know you. They've been following you forever. So your most aware audience are direct followers, past clients, warm customers, people in your list, right? And those people you can go to with direct offers. If you want built the know, like, trust, you don't have to go through all the promise, the proclamation, the story. You've already taken them along that journey, or somebody has, and they are in your warm audience. So I could just make direct offers. Like I actually did this week with a couple of clients and prospects and people in my ecosystem. I made some direct offer based comments and posts and messages, and it led into sales and sales onto my offer that I launched last week. Or no, I didn't launch it officially earlier this week. But again, a warm audience. I don't have to go through all that other stuff. I can just make an offer and say, hey, this is my new thing. Check it out if you'd like, right? So yeah, I just wanted to go through a little more of that. I'll go back really quickly and then I'll kick it to questions. I'll just read through the definitions, although I kind of gave examples already. But again, these are kind of backwards in terms of the awareness and sophistication level, the way they're listed here. But again, to my most aware audience, offer leads, straight to the point. Get 25% off now, right? You can just go run that to an audience that already knows, likes, and trusts you, and you're probably going to see results. Promise lead, a big promise appealing to emotional benefits. For instance, in this case, have the whitest smile in the room. That's a big promise. That would be good in the dental industry, right? Problem solution, leading with the big problem that keeps your customer up at night. And in this case, let's use the example, how will you scale your business when Facebook ad costs are rising, right? It's been a common one, especially to do with our platform. Proclamation lead, a big, bold statement to disarm the reader. So just for kind of just for the dramatics of it, read this or die, right? Actually, you guys would be surprised how good of an opener that is in email subject lines. I've used that one and tested it over years, and it's one of my best openers. Just saying, read this or die. It throws people off, and they're like, screw you. I know I'm not going to die. I'm going to open it, right? And it's almost like people are doing it just to spite you, right? Or to rebel, for lack of a better phrase. The secret lead, create intrigue with a big secret before revealing the offer, right? So this method can turn 2 hours of work into 500 new ads to beat your competitor. There's a secret, right? And then the story lead is telling the story and taking your customer on the journey. I always, my best story-based posts go with a little of my background, and I lead into talking. I start off talking about what I do now. Then I give a little backstory, my background. Then I talk about a big obstacle I overcame and a big leap of faith I took to do that. For me, in my story, I don't know how many of you guys know, it was chronic back pain. It was really learning digital marketing and taking the leap out of 20 years in corporate America as a route rep and starting my own digital business and kind of gambling on myself. Like that was a big leap. That goes into my story. That back pain and that chronic back pain was an obstacle I had to overcome. So by using this formula of what you do now, your backstory, big obstacle you overcame, big leap of faith you took, now the success you're seeing, and then the last part I call social proof, but it's not social proof the way you think in a story-based post. I don't mean testimonials or screenshots of revenue. It's saying, hey, not only did I do this, but I taught Jody, Julie, and John how to do this, right? So that makes the reader, as they're reading it, Whether they've had the same obstacle, they've taken the same leap, it's kind of irrelevant, but I guarantee you they've had some kind of obstacle. So they're going to relate to your part of the story. They've probably taken some giant leap of faith in their life. And then once you show them, like, I've done this, right? So if I go through that whole story thing, like, hey, I was a service rep for 20 years. I started out with all these back problems. I took a big leap of faith and gambled on myself and quit that career 20 years and jumped into digital marketing. Now I'm co-owner of 3 businesses, 2 7-figure and 1 8-figure companies. Who would have guessed that happened in a few short years? Not only did I do it, I showed John, Julie. And the reason I do that is because, like, if I just get to that part of the story where I had that success, a lot of people don't associate themselves with greatness or being able to achieve things. And I'm not calling myself that by any means, guys. That's the way they look at it. They're like, okay, well, Ray did it, but that doesn't mean I can do it, right? A lot of people would have that doubt or that belief in their mind just from a limiting belief mindset that a majority of the population has in terms of what they're capable of or what's possible out there in terms of earning potential, right? So, like, if I just say I could do it, a lot of people are like, okay, Ray can do it, but I don't think I could take that with faith. I don't think I'm as diligent, whatever. Okay, but now you showed Jody, Julie, and John how to do it. Well, now it seems more achievable, and maybe I can do it, right? So that right there is just a good 5 or 6 kind of framework formula for writing story-based content. And that's all I have for today. Let me kick it back and just see if there's any questions. Me among those. Yeah, that's right, Georgetta. You did buy my newer offer this week. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I just saw that in the comments. If anyone just wants to see real quick what Georgetta or what I was referring to is, I launched a new offer this week, just a little $97 bundle for one of my other companies, my PDocs brand, which for you guys that don't know, that was my Adam and Jesse's initial company before we ever launched Audience Lab or my other company, Sales Lab, and it kind of it led into these other companies. But anyway, I still run that company. I still work with quite a bit of clients, and I've had over 3,000 clients and students come through this. And I just put together a great front end offer by going back and doing market research. I pulled my top 20 best clients and asked them, hey, for my trainings, what do you make the most money with? Right. And then I went through and looked through all my curriculum and saw which ones are being watched and consumed, implemented the most. And then I went back and talked to my team. I said, about all the conversations you've had with our successful clients, where did they say was the biggest impact things? Right. So that's all I did to create this particular program. And then I took all that together and I put it into one curriculum and access with some bonuses, right? And I'm like, hey, let's give it to people for under $100. Let them get a taste of what PDocs can do. I only launched it very softly to a warm market just to start to get some feedback, work out some kinks in my funnel if there is any. Now that I have some enrollees, some signups, and I've worked out a couple of kinks and things that to make it flow better, tested the upsells and the downsells within my funnel. Now we're launching it, to a more mass campaign. But again, that's just for a little more context on what I was discussing here. Yeah, really quickly, I got to hop off in a minute or two to prep for my 4 p.m. Anybody have any questions? Just type a 1 in the chat, and I'll try to call on you really quickly before I got to jump off. Or did I just explain everything so phenomenally well that nobody has a question? No questions. All right. Great. Well, maybe one more thing before you guys all hop off. You can just do me a favor. Just type a 1 in the chat if you pick something up of value today or something you could take away and implement. I don't care if there was 1 thing, 2 things. If anybody got something of value going through the lesson I did today, at least just drop a 1 in the comment. Thank you, Matt. Georgetta, I'm guessing by your thank you and sure, you got some value. So that is another book. The one I actually referenced is called, why did I just draw a blank on it? It's one of my favorite ones. Breakthrough Advertising by Eugene Schwartz. But again, the hard copy legit is like over $1,000. So I can actually, if you want it, Georgetta, especially being a customer, I can give you the downloaded PDF version. Just message me after the call. I got a couple back to back. Just shoot me a reminder DM either in school or Facebook, and I will send you over the Eugene Schwartz PDF or the digital version. Yeah, awesome. All right, guys, I got to run and go prep for a big mutually beneficial partnership that I just signed, and I'm actually getting my whole sales team on here, and we're rolling out a new data partner, and you'll see some announcements coming with Audience Lab. But I got to solidify everything and get my team up to speed before I can tell all you guys about it. So I got to go run and do that, guys. I will catch you all next week, and I'm going to drop this replay into our school community later today. Thank you, Georgetta. I appreciate the congratulations. And yeah, just shoot me a DM, and I'll get that over to you a little bit later. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you. Appreciate it.